The top stories tonight in Y News. Several aspirants from the administration camp are now being reshuffled for the 2022 elections. Presidential daughter Sara Duterte has withdrawn her candidacy for Davao City mayor, while vice presidential aspirant Senator Bongo hints that there may be changes in his plans to run for vice president.
The issue on the controversial use of face shields continues as Manila Mayor Isko Moreno Domagoso is putting his foot down on his no face shield policy, while the Metro Manila Council is backing him up with a resolution. Meanwhile, Palace spokesperson Harry Roque appeals to the local government units to wait for the IATF's final decision. And despite the implemented COVID-19 restrictions in the country, the economic growth in the second quarter grew at a slightly faster pace than what was expected by analysts.
Good evening, Philippines and the world. Today is Tuesday, November 9, 2021. I am Herlene Delgado.
Join us in the next hour as we deliver today's top stories around the Philippines and in other parts of the world. Emmanuel Castro III.
We are also seen in 1,935 satellite monitoring centers nationwide and via live streaming worldwide through the UNTV News and Rescue social media accounts and our website, untvweb.com. I am William Theo.
First in the news, Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte has withdrawn her candidacy for re-election in the 2022 polls. Meanwhile, her younger brother, Vice Mayor Serbisyong Duterte, also withdrew his re-election bid and will be gunning for the city's top post instead. Our Davao City correspondent, Marisol Montano, will give us the details live. So Marisol, what is the reason why the Duterte siblings suddenly changed their plans?
Harleen, as of this moment, Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte and Vice Mayor Serbisyong Duterte did not say the reasons behind their moves. But we will continue to monitor the updates here in Davao City on the sudden change of plans of the Duterte siblings. In a message posted on her Facebook page, Mayor Sara Duterte confirmed she has withdrawn her certificate of candidacy to run as mayor in next year's elections. Mayor Sara added that her younger brother Serbisyong will be her substitute for the top position.
Nasa instructions ako ang nga mo-withdraw ko and then karon na mo-file ko as COC gisunod lang pod nako. Pero wala ko maingon kung unsa bagid ang daganan or nabasay daganan. Wala ko maingon.
Earlier in the day, Vice Mayor Serbisyong Duterte said he has withdrawn her COC and Davao City 1st District Councilor Melchor Kitain Jr. will be his substitute. Kitain told reporters in Davao City that the events of November 9 were not expected. He only found out that he'd be running for vice mayor instead very recently. Mayor Sara, daughter of President Rodrigo Duterte, has consistently topped pre-election surveys on presidential preferences for 2022 elections. She previously said that she will not be asking a national post in the 2022 polls despite persistent calls from her supporters and other political groups to run for president. That's the latest here in Davao. Back to you, Arlene.
Thank you, Marisol Montano, reporting live from Davao City. Meanwhile, Senator Christopher Bongo reveals that his vice presidential bid may still change. In an event in Antipolo City, Go became emotional, saying that a change will happen in the coming days as the November 15 deadline for substitution looms. He also lamented the dirty politics in the country.
Etong kandidatura ko bilang Vice Presidente ay maaaring magbago. Kasi hindi ho maiwasan. May mga changes po sa politika na sabi ko nga napakadumi. Dito ka na nga gustong magserbisyo sa kapwa mo Pilipino, merong mga pagbabago na wala naman po akong magagawa. Alam nyo, itong problema about the substitution dito sa politika. maaring may mga babago sa mga tatakbuhang posisyon sa mga darating na araw. Ang problema po dyan, kailangan ko umiwas.
When asked if his party, PDP Laban Kusi faction, is talking to other candidates who may replace their standard bearer, Senator Ronald De La Rosa, Go says it will depend on the decision of the party leadership.
Sa partido na po yun, ang nakakaalam nun yung party leadership na po. Ako naman, matagal ko nang sinabi, 100% po ako seryoso as candidate for Vice President.
He adds President Duterte has 51% chance of running in the Senate because of some unfinished business.
Several Metro Manila mayors will abide by the national government's policy to implement the mandatory wearing of face shield while waiting for the IATF's decision. But for Manila Mayor Isko Moreno Dumagoso, their no face shield policy in the city stays. Dante Amento will tell us why.
MMDA Chairman Benhur Abalos Jr. says they crafted a resolution of lifting the mandatory use of face shields except in some critical areas such as hospitals, clinics, and the likes. In a text message to the UNTV News this evening, Abalos disclosed they have yet to submit the recommendation to the IATF. Mayor Francis Zamora of San Juan City believes the matter will be discussed during the IATF meeting on Thursday. Once the IATF approves the recommendation, he will issue an executive order to amend their existing ordinances that impose penalties for non-compliance. In Valenzuela City, Mayor Rex Gatchalian urges the residents to wait for the IATF final resolution. But Manila Mayor Isko Moreno is firm over his decision for non-mandatory use of face shields in the city, which was implemented starting yesterday. Dumagoso dared the national government to go to a court to ask for declaratory relief. He also added that their decision is to protect the general welfare of the Manila constituents. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque, meanwhile, has asked to respect the president and follow the rules over the use of face shield until the IATF final resolution would be released.
Ang sa akin naman po, idaan lang sa tamang proseso. Ako po ang personal na paninindigan ko, dapat talaga tanggalin na ang face shield. Pero idaan natin sa proseso, antayin natin yung desisyon ng IATF. Kung di natin dadaan sa proseso, baka magkanya-kanya na lang ang ating mga kababayan, mabaliwala yung mga polisiyang ini-issue ng IATF na dapat sana ipatupad ng mga lokal na pamahalaan.
Dante Amento, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Department of Health Secretary Francisco Duque III expressed optimism that Metro Manila may be placed under the lowest alert level during the holiday season. Meanwhile, the Health Secretary also believes that the use of face shields should be risk-based. Aiko Miguel will tell us why.
New COVID-19 cases in the country are now below 2,000 in the previous days, according to Health Secretary Francisco Duque III. If cases continue to decline, the so-called epicenter of the pandemic, which is Metro Manila, will be de-escalated to the alert level 1 by December.
Depende yan, Yusek Rocky, no? Titingnan nga natin ang numero, ang datos. Kung ang datos ay patuloy naman na bumababa, halimbawa kahapon sa 2,000, a little over 2,000 lang tayo, no? So, posible na pagka below 1,000 tayo o 500 per day, ay baka pwede natin ibaba pa hanggang alert level 1. Eh, sino ba naman na may ayaw na mas mababa ang atin alert level, eh mas malaking bahagi ng ekonomiya naman ang atin mabubuksan at mas marami rin tayo mababawing mga trabahong nawala.
For this to happen, Secretary Duque reminds Filipinos to comply with the existing safety and health protocols against COVID-19. The health chief also said they are strictly monitoring the case trend now, as the holiday season is also nearing. Once the healthcare utilization rate exceeds moderate risk classification, this is a sign that cases are starting to spike again.
Kung ako tatanungin, ito personal, I have to qualify, no? Pwede gawin voluntary under certain circumstances. Siguro alert level 2, pero yung mga 3Cs, kailangan pa rin tayong mag-face shield dyan. So, closed spaces, okay. Kung sa mga lugar ka na ang ventilasyon ay hindi naman sapat at maraming tao, ay hindi mo ma-maintain ang 1 meter social distancing, eh di ba mas maganda yung karagdagan protection, taglay ng face shield?
Meanwhile, the face shield requirement should be mandatory if alert level 3 or 4 is in place. Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Meanwhile, the Philippines today logged 1,409 more cases of COVID-19, pushing the nationwide tally of confirmed infections to 2,806,694. The Department of Health, or DOH, said the latest count brought the country's active cases to 30,544. Of these cases, 60.7% are mild, 17.05% are moderate, 10% are severe, 8% are asymptomatic, and 4.2% are in critical condition. Meanwhile, total recoveries rose to 2,731,583 after 2,941 more patients recovered from the disease. COVID-related deaths climbed to 44,567 with 46 new fatalities. All accredited testing laboratories in the country were operational on November 7, but 5 laboratories failed to submit data on time, the DOH noted in its report. Meanwhile, the overall global COVID-19 caseload has reached 250,369,811, while the deaths have surged to 5,056,034, according to the Johns Hopkins University. The United States is the worst-hit country with the world's highest number of cases and deaths at 46,613,210 and 755,643 respectively. In terms of infections, India follows with 34,377,113 cases and 461,389 deaths. In terms of deaths, Brazil comes third with 609,573 fatalities. In other news, the Philippines' gross domestic product grew in the third quarter of 2021 despite the COVID-19 restrictions imposed by the government to curb the surge of the Delta variant in the country. Rosalie Cos will tell us why.
The Philippine economy has expanded by 7.1% from July to September 2021. This is a turnaround from the minus 11.6% gross domestic product seen in the third quarter of 2020. However, it is slower than the 12% growth posted in the second quarter of 2022. The economic managers of the Duterte administration said that a 7.1% GDP growth is one of the highest in ASEAN and East Asian region amid the pandemic. The main contributors to the growth are wholesale and retail trade, repair of motor vehicles and motorcycles, manufacturing, and construction.
Our progress in the third quarter shows that the recovery is accelerating, and it is very likely that we will hit or even exceed the high end of our growth target for 2021. Of course, this entails everyone's cooperation. It entails managing the risk better and moving forward towards alert level 1 by the end of the year or early 2022.
The Philippine economy lost some growth momentum due to 2 weeks enhanced community quarantine and 1 month modified enhanced community quarantine in Metro Manila. According to Philippine Statistics Authority Undersecretary Dennis Mapa, the economy has to grow 5.3% in the fourth quarter to achieve the high end of the 4 to 5% growth target for 2021 and about 1.7% to achieve the lower end target. To enable the Philippine economic recovery, the vaccination program has to be accelerated. COVID-19 alert level must be downgraded to 1 around January 2022, and the use of the 2021 budget must be maximized. Meanwhile, the palace reminds the public to achieve the target recovery, the people must continue to strictly adhere to public health measures.
Kumpiyansa ang ating economic team at ang buong administrasyon na babalik tayo sa daan tungo sa rapid and more inclusive growth. Pangyayari po ito, magtiwala lamang po at mag-ingay, ingat buhay para sa pagbabalik po ng ating buhay.
Rosa Licoz, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Metropolitan Manila Development Authority mulls the comeback of the number coding scheme this week, but the agency plans to do it gradually. Asher Kadapan Jr. tells us why live. Yes, Asher, good evening. Go ahead.
Good evening, Will. The volume of vehicles and the traffic congestion in the National Capital Region are becoming almost similar to what they are like before the pandemic. Based on the data gathered by the Metropolitan Manila Development Authority, the volume of vehicles plying EDSA has now reached to about 402,000, which is just 3,000 less than the traffic volume during the pre-pandemic days. Although the traffic speed is still comparatively higher than it was before. With this, the MMDA mulls over the gradual re-implementation of number coding scheme this week. But MMDA Chairman Benhur Abalos Jr. says they may implement it only during rush hour. The MMDA plans to implement the number coding scheme only from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Abalos explains this would avoid drastic change for all commuters, as most still rely on private conveyances as their personal bubble amid the pandemic. The MMDA has been monitoring the traffic condition in the metropolis while they finalize a possible change in the policy. Abalos says the agency may decide on the re-implementation of the said scheme in 2 to 3 days. Will?
Yes, thank you, Asher Kadapan Jr., reporting live.
The Department of Education updated its list of 100 participating schools in the pilot run of face-to-face classes this month. Based on the list, 4 schools were replaced from joining the event. JP Nunez explains why.
Various reasons result to the replacement of 4 schools in joining the pilot run of face-to-face classes on November 15. Tabina Central Elementary School in Region 9 and Tirik-Tirikan Elementary School in Region 5 were deferred by their respective local government units, while Cabuyuan Elementary School in Catanduanes is not included in the list of 329 eligible schools from the Department of Health. And Sosimo S. Magdadaro National High School is under a modified curricular offering classification. The Department of Education updated its list of 100 participating public schools for the pilot in-person classes. Among them are 10 schools from Regions 1, 3, 8, and 10, 8 schools from Regions 7, 9, and 11, 9 in Region 5, while 5 schools from Regions 4A and 12, only 3 in Region 6, 14 schools in Region 13. 30 private schools were also nominated to begin their face-to-face classes, but only 20 will be chosen for pilot run on November 22.
Lahat na posibilidad pinag-aralan namin, lahat na solusyon pinag-isipan, mayroon tayong contingency plans, mayroon tayong very detailed plans sa pag-implement nito, pati yung mga school grades na kailangan na isama dito sa ating pilot. Ito ay base sa advice ng ating mga health experts at it makes us feel comfortable dahil maraming nagsusuporta, ahensya ng gobyerno at saka civil society as well as the parents themselves. So napakalaki ng chances ng success nito for these 100 schools.
Orientations were already conducted to school personnel, parents, and students who will participate in the physical classes. DepEd assured that vaccination and regular swab or antigen testing for participating students will not be mandatory.
Kung isasubject ba natin sa swab test or antigen test yung mga maliliit na bata, very traumatic. And the answer of DOH is really no. They will not be subjected to antigen testing or swab test, but we will rely on symptoms.
JP Nunez, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
The House Committee on Health has approved in principle bills that would continue the provision of benefits to all health workers during the COVID-19 pandemic. Nel Maribuhok will give us the details live. Nell, what are these benefits and why do they want it to continue?
Yes, Harleen, lawmakers who filed the bills in the House of Representatives claimed that the current allowance and hazard pay of medical workers are insufficient and limited. According to Bayan Muna Party List Representative Carlos Zarate, the special risk allowance and other benefits should be given to all healthcare workers.
This bill seeks to grant SRA and active hazard duty pay to all health workers in the public and private sectors.
Zarate is one of the author of the House Bill 9640, which states that the government should ensure the provisions of 15,000 pesos special risk allowances and 5,000 pesos active hazard duty pay. The Filipino Nurses United agrees to the proposal of fixed rate benefits for health workers.
Ito rin po yung pinaka makatarungan, no, at fair sa lahat ng ating health workers.
Meanwhile, committee panel chairperson Representative Angelina Helentan wants a comprehensive healthcare benefits to medical personnel who were also infected with COVID-19.
Ang proposal ko po is to have a comprehensive healthcare benefits, no? So kung magkano in-incur talaga nila at sa treatment, no, at nakasurvive sila, kung kayang i-cover ng PhilHealth, i-cover po ng PhilHealth.
But the Department of Health will push for singular allowance, where the basis of benefits depends on the risk classifications. For low-risk workers, the allowance would amount to 3,000 pesos, while high-risk health workers would receive an amount of 9,000 pesos allowance. After hearing the positions of the stakeholders, the committee has approved in principle several proposed measures subject to style and amendments. Back to you, Harleen.
Thank you, Nel Maribahok, reporting live from San Mateo, Rizal.
While several senators supported the 24 billion peso budget slash on the government's anti-insurgency task force under the Senate panel's version, Harleen Delgado will tell us why.
The Senate Finance Committee made budget cuts in the proposed 2022 national budget under the General Appropriations Bill submitted by the House of Representatives for COVID-19 recovery programs. These include a 24 billion peso cut from the 28 billion peso fund of the National Task Force to End Local Communist Armed Conflict, or NTF-LCAC, to fund the special risk allowance of health workers.
We cannot make a judgment really if the program has been a success or not because we've not received very little information on the actual projects. Kasi ang sinasabi, dinownload na yung pondo. The DBM tells us, binigay na nila yung pondo sa mga barangay or the mga municipalities or provinces. Yun ang inaantay namin. Asa na yung mga reports on the projects? Wala na pala pang binibigay sa amin.
Some senators expressed support on the move. Senate Minority Leader Franklin Drilon thanked Senate Finance Committee Chairperson Sonny Angara for supporting his advocacy to realign the NTF-LCAC's budget. He also called for the slashing of alleged 2 billion peso hidden budget in other government agencies for the Anti-Insurgency Task Force. Senator Panfilo Lacson also supported the budget cut, noting that the officials must be held accountable if misuse of the budget was committed. The budgets of the Department of Public Works and Highways and the Department of Transportation were also cut to augment in the budget of the health sector. Other changes from the House version include the increase in the budget for the purchase of COVID-19 vaccines and booster shots amounting to over 61 billion pesos. 16.2 billion pesos was allotted under the budget of the Department of Health, while 45.3 billion pesos was placed under the unprogrammed funds. Among the top departments with the highest budget allocations are the education sector with 738 billion pesos, the infrastructure sector with 665 billion pesos, while placing third is the health sector with 312 billion pesos. Followed by the Department of the Interior and Local Government, Department of National Defense, Department of Social Welfare and Development, the Agriculture Sector, DOTR, Department of Labor and Employment, and the Judicial Department. A special provision was also created placing a deadline for the procurement service of the Department of Budget and Management, or PSDBM, in disbursing its funds until December 2023 to prevent the so-called parked funds within the agency. Angara has sponsored the committee report in the Senate plenary today. The Senate will hold marathon hearings beginning tomorrow and targets to pass its version of the budget on November 25. Jorlene Delgado, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
The Philippine Air Force welcomes the arrival of 5 brand US-701 Black Hawk helicopters from Poland. The choppers were part of the third and final batch of delivery of a Polish aircraft manufacturer. The Philippine Air Force ordered 16 units of Black Hawks for around 11.5 billion pesos. The first batch of 6 units were delivered from November 9 to December 2, 2020, but one of the helicopters was involved in a copter crash in Capas, Tarlac last June 24, 2021 that killed 6 airmen in the tragedy. Philippine Air Force spokesperson Lieutenant Colonel Maynard Mariano said the new helicopters will be subjected to various tests before they are officially included in the Philippine Air Force's fleet.
Justice Secretary Bernardo Guevara was taken to a hospital this morning as he was not feeling well. In a Viber message to reporters, Guevara said he is still confined in a hospital to undergo tests, including an angiogram, due to breathing and fatigue problems the past few weeks. Justice Undersecretary Adrian Sugay also told reporters that Guevara would stay in the hospital for observation and tests. Sugay added that the Justice Secretary's workload and busy schedule might have affected his health.
For the news abroad, Singapore's High Court halts the execution of a Malaysian drug smuggler who is said to have a low mental capacity. Charisse Longbowen will tell us why live. Good evening, Charisse.
Good evening, Elsie. Nagaenshan Dharmalingam's execution by hanging was suddenly halted on Wednesday after Malaysian authorities and human rights activists demanded that his low IQ makes it illegal for him to be sentenced to death. He was caught 12 years ago after attempting to smuggle 43 grams of heroin from Malaysia to Singapore strapped onto his thigh. It was then that medical experts, through an assessment, found that Dharmalingam had a low IQ of 69, yet was still sentenced to death by hanging. Campaigners brought attention to the fact that an IQ of 69 is medically and internationally considered to be an intellectual disability, and that the execution of a mentally disabled individual is against the international human rights law. His lawyer, M. Ravi, also stated that Dharmalingam was a victim of a drug trafficking operation and needs treatment, not punishment. More than 60,000 people have now signed a petition to demand Singapore's president to grant the pardon of Dharmalingam. For now, the stay is temporary until an appeal is heard. Dharmalingam's case will be investigated again by the Court of Appeal on Tuesday, now taking into context his mental disability. Elsie?
Charisse, was there any comment from Dharmalingam's family?
Elsie, after almost 10 years of being placed on the death row, Dharmalingam's family were shocked to receive the news of his execution only on the 26th of October. Dharmalingam's family and lawyer, the family can barely recognize Dharmalingam with his current state and condition. The family states that they have since been praying for him every day. Back to you, Elsie.
Thank you, Charisse Longbowen, live from Bangkok, Thailand. The latest survey from the New York Federal Reserve Bank showed that Americans' median inflation expectations for 2022 have hit an all-time high. Their perception about their finances are also worsening. Ann Gonzalez will tell us why.
The U.S. median inflation expectations for 2022 increased to 5.7% in October. This marks a 0.4 percentage point jump from the previous month and a series high for records dating back to June 2013. Experts say that supply bottlenecks and raw material shortages gave rise to inflation this year as economies around the world rebound from last year's pandemic. Americans are expecting all commodities except for medical care would continue to rise in the year ahead. This includes food, rent, college, and petrol. Petrol's expected change in the cost skyrocketed from 5.9% in September to 9.4% this month. However, the Federal Reserve insisted that inflation will prove to be transitory and eventually price pressures will ease. The survey also found that when it comes to the health of household finances, more Americans say they are worse off now than compared to a year ago. Meanwhile, Americans also anticipate a stronger labor market and greater job security in the year ahead. Ann Gonzalez, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Leaders of the Asia-Pacific Trade Group APEC begin their virtual talks this week. The event, hosted by New Zealand, will focus on the region's economic recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. The week will start with a two-day APEC ministerial meeting. New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern will chair a virtual meeting between trade and foreign ministers of the 21 economy group, which includes the United States, China, and Russia. APEC is responsible for over 60% of global economic output, accounts for 47% of world trade, and is home to 38% of the world's population.
As we plan for recovery from COVID-19, it is economic cooperation through APEC, the most dynamic region in the world's economy, that will help us all rebuild. Like never before, we will create an environment where connections can be made and APEC's important work can continue, including progress on sustainability, ensuring widespread adoption of digital tools to drive productivity, and developing inclusive plans that create opportunities for all our people.
An 83-year-old man from Alabama fretted to record books as the oldest hiker to finish the Appalachian Trail in the U.S. Marvi Delphine explains why. Live. Yes, Marvi?
Elsie, to find inner peace, MJ Sonny Everhart, also known as Nimbleville Nomad, finished the 3,500-kilometer trail in eastern United States this week despite his age of 83, making him a part of the 80-year-old Thru Hiker Club.
This is the artificial finish line. You come up here and you will have hiked the entire Appalachian Trail in less than 1 year, a through hike, and now are the oldest person to ever do that, joining only two others, myself and Earl Schick. I want another hug.
His former record of completing the hike at the age of 82 in 2017, prompting him to pass the torch. Graybeard, a friend of Nimbleville Nomad who joined him for the finish, said he is happy because records are made to be broken. Nimbleville Nomad is an experienced hiker who started walking when he retired from being an optometrist in 1993 in search for peace after a divorce and losing the respect of his children, and since then has never stopped. Despite his previous experiences, according to Nimbleville Nomad, the Appalachian Trail hike was difficult due to his age and he needed resolve to finish it. Meanwhile, this year, 5-year-old Harvey Sutton, known as Little Man, also completed the Appalachian Trail, recording him as the youngest hiker. Elsie?
Marvi, this is indeed an inspiring story because despite his age, he is able to accomplish such a feat. But would this be Nimbleville Nomad's last hike?
Elsie, with the trekking completed, Nimbleville Nomad plans to return home to Alabama. However, according to O.D. Norman, his friend and companion, it is unlikely that this would be his last hike. Back to you, Elsie.
Thank you, Marvi Delphine, live from Australia. And those are the reasons behind the news in other parts of the globe. I am Elsie Marcos, live from Auckland, New Zealand. Good evening.
The Quezon City government will now rehabilitate, train, and put impounded and neglected dogs and cats up for adoption. Janice Inhente reports why.
The Quezon City local government is now completing the construction of dog and cat cages in the Animal Care and Adoption Center facility located at Barangay Payatas. Through the city's Animal Welfare and Rehabilitation Program, impounded and neglected animals will be rehabilitated, trained, and will be put up for adoption instead of putting down the animals through euthanasia.
Kapag meron pong kuha yung city pound natin, yung mga aso doon, isa-select namin into 2 groups. Pwede silang mapunta sa support groups na ite-train natin for 4 months. Tapos, ibibigay natin yung mga aso sa mga government facilities na kailangan ng mga support dogs. Or pwede din po silang mapunta sa adoption part ng program natin.
The adoption center can provide temporary homes to up to 60 animals until they find a new family. The facility will also have a consultation or clinic and surgery room for animals in need of medical attention. There will also be a separate cages for sick animals to prevent them from infecting other healthy animals.
I-rehabilitate po natin yung sila kung may sakit, kung kailangan nating gamutin, kung kailangan i-surgery, kailangan kapunin, mga ganun po. Doon po sila mapupunta yung mga aso. Although yung mga animal na i-release naman na po, kumpleto na po sila ng vaccine, may anti-rabies na sila, lahat-lahat, dewormed na po sila, tapos kinapon naman na po sila bago sila ma-release.
Based on the report of the City Veterinary Department, the city pound captures an average of 200 animals weekly or 9,600 homeless animals per year. Of the number, the pet adoption rate only at less than 1%. The QCVD has also coordination with the animal welfare advocates to ensure that the program is in accordance with Republic Act 8485 or the Animal Welfare Act. Janice Inhente, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
And before we close, we will leave you with a word, giving glory to God. From the book of Proverbs, chapter 22, verse 6, it says, "Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it." And those are the reasons behind the news, November 9, 2021. I am Herlene Delgado.
Reasons we deliver to you as they unfold. I'm Angelo Castro III.
And because we need to know, we will always ask why. I am William Theo. We serve the people. We give glory to God.